This is MediEvil on PlayStation 4. This was provided by Sony Interactive Canada to review. So this is MediEvil, which is a remaster of an older PlayStation title. It is exclusive to the platform, and it features this zany sort of wacky guy. Things didn't go well for him during the first battle against this crazy wizard, but through whatever means, he's back, and I don't know, he's trying to be the hero that he couldn't be the first time around, which is kind of funny. And the story does have that sort of charm to it, as it is about this weird little sort of wacky character, you know, that's doing his thing and trying to be a hero, which is interesting. So with this, I'm playing on the base PlayStation 4, and honestly, it has some performance issues, just sort of slight ones that you'll see while I'm playing, where it feels a little bit sluggish, and just like, you know, there's just something that's quite not right with the frame rate in this one. Moving past that, it's very much a hack and slash with some puzzle type options that are present. It plays kind of like the original, I'm guessing. That was generally the gist of what I've been reading into in this one. I personally did not play the game when it first came out back in the day. This is one of the earlier levels. What's really neat is the game has this overall map that you'll see after we're done this one, and you can actually go between this open map, and you get to select what levels you want to go to. You unlock additional ones once you beat certain levels, and that's kind of how it goes. So there are like main ones you have to complete, but you know, you kind of can go down side winding paths. Like there's one where you gotta go and fight like a giant pumpkin thing, which is kind of crazy. The levels aren't too long, but they take a while for you to actually work through due to the difficulty that is present in them. They're very hard. The game in general is quite difficult. I wouldn't say it's like, you know, impossible or anything like that, but it's not necessarily an easy game, which is kind of more of the impression I had when I was first looking into this one, because I was like, oh, it kind of looks a little bit more cartoony, kiddie, and fun in nature, which is maybe what they were going for when they were first kind of revealing this one. So if you're coming in here for the first time, don't expect, you know, an easy sort of going experience. You actually will face a bit of a challenge. Oh, what's fun is you can rip off your own arm and use that in combat. That's kind of funny. But yeah, this is not necessarily an easygoing experience. You are actually going to face a bit of a challenge as you're moving through this game and fighting the things. If you die, you actually die. So you usually have like a vial or something like that, a couple of vials of health. And then when that runs out, you have to restart the entire level if you die, which can be quite frustrating when it comes to some of the later levels. Well, any of the levels in general. Some of them you can just be having like a hard time, and you're just like, ugh, you know. And I don't think it would have been too difficult for them to perhaps, you know, upgrade the game a little bit with some modern mechanics. It really does feel like a very aged game. Sometimes the camera is a little frustrating to work with. Yeah, and just it feels quite dated. It's not like a bad experience. I think it's more for the people that originally played it as opposed to new players. Like I do enjoy the idea of the game and the concept of, like, you know, you can kind of go and explore, and you can backtrack in some levels in order to, you know, like find hidden things or get extra bonuses that are going to help you later on. And the game does have an interesting sort of mechanic in regards to the fact that things kind of carry in the game. So if I have, and this is also a very frustrating element of play, so say I finish a level and I've got like 3 health, I'll start the next level with 3 health. It's like a continued process. And your weapons, some of them can break down, and it just, that kind of makes it a little bit even more frustrating, because it's like, how am I supposed to do this next level with like 3 health, right? And then you got to try all these kind of things in order to basically battle your way there to do it, which is a little frustrating, to be honest. And that's why I think this is not, I'm really messing up there, not necessarily something that is overall too accessible for all types of players. Like, I have a good time playing this one, but at the same time, I do get quite frustrated at it, just due to the nature of the idea of it. But it is cool that you're not, like, you're kind of mastering the levels. Like, they're not too hardcore. You'll figure out what you need to do path-wise and understand the flow of certain enemies. And I did notice that some enemies seem to kind of get, like, stuck. Like, they'll go against, like, a post or something like that, and they'll just kind of stop and not move, which is kind of weird. And you have to get, like, really close to them for them to activate again. And it is kind of just like a weird situation in that regard in this one. Oh wow, you're actually starting with the floor jumping this time. That's interesting. So this is just kind of like one of the bosses. You'll fight a number of them. There's like wolves, and I mentioned the pumpkin. So it's not, you know, too hardcore what you're doing. You just gotta understand what's going on here. And watch the health bar as you're playing. Maybe get some ranged weapons. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been using sort of the inventory switch between like my sword and my crossbow sort of thing, or have like a giant hammer balance. Again, with that potentially breaking as you're playing along. I would have liked just maybe some really tweaks to modernize the experience a bit more. They could have had an option where it's like, oh, do you want the true to natural version of MediEvil, or do you want, you know, like this new version where it's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more, I don't want to say fun, but a little easier going. Because accessibility is becoming more and more of a thing in games. But overall, it's a neat title. It's a very interesting one. I do find that it hasn't necessarily aged well, in my opinion, mechanics-wise, and just kind of the feeling and the responsiveness in regards to how you interact and hit enemies with the sword. You know, no checkpoints or anything like that. It can be a little difficult to understand where you're going to. Like, sometimes reading the books is quite helpful in this one, so that you know more or have a better idea of where you're going and what you're supposed to be doing within it. But this is an example of kind of, you know, going back and checking out a different sort of area afterwards or something like that. So you can use the moon there. But yeah, it just, some little issues like that. It feels, and I don't want to be too negative, it feels kind of like a very average sort of experience. Like, it really does give me like a little bit of a niche understanding as I go to that. It's for a very particular audience, and I don't necessarily think that people are really going to be too attracted to this one if they are playing it for the first time. Just due to the fact that they didn't spend time, you know, enhancing things or really spending much of an effort to take the character or the concept further. They have added bits of extended lore, from what I understand, and some kind of new features and stuff to it, which are appreciated, just to kind of, you know, expand what that first package was. I think it loads reasonably quickly. And here's like the overall map world that you kind of shift through, and then the fog disappears as you're going through it. And you're just kind of getting multiple lanes of options. So we're going to do the Scarecrow Fields, which I thought were a very cool level to kind of show off. So yeah, this is one of the more kind of difficult levels here. You see that kind of gives you information on the scarecrows, so you get an idea what to expect from them. I guess this one, maybe you could see the performance issues a bit more present compared to the last level. And it's just like, there's quite a lot of enemies in this one, so that's one thing that also kind of bothers me to a degree, is the fact that, you know, with you being able to die so easily, it's almost easier for your survival if you don't actually interact with the enemies and you just kind of move around them, which is not, you know, necessarily a great way to to kind of play things, in my opinion. Like, I should want to fight the enemies, but the fact that if I do, I'm going to lose too much health to be able to survive later in the level, it's a little bit disappointing, and I'm sure there's some people that are, you know, a lot better at this in regards to being able to survive with health and stuff. But if you're like a new player and you're not quite used to this style of gameplay, you might find that to be a little bit too intense for you to get over or really deal with. Oh, these bats are so annoying. But this is kind of, again, you saw this in the last level, the extent of the kind of game. You're moving through largely linear environments in order to collect rune stones to open paths or to battle enemies, and occasionally you'll get like healing springs, or you'll have little side things that you can go and do. This is another one of the big robots. And it was designed in mind so that you can use the original sort of guides and everything like that that were available for the game. It basically really is the exact sort of thing. Again, I was hoping they would take it a little bit further. This almost seems like something that you could reboot from scratch. Like, I know people are going to want to play the experience that they perhaps grew up with, or something like that along the lines. I know I would for some of my favorites, so it's nice that they did this effort. It just, again, as you're kind of seeing here, hopefully the performance is a little bit not so great. How did I get that before? Maybe I grabbed so many now. Anyways, yeah. And even past that, like the combat just kind of like, I don't know if I don't get enough feedback out of it, but it's just a little bit, I don't know, you're just sort of slashing. There's no real heavy weighting to it, which I think is an issue for me. So this one's kind of cool. We go through the back area and we can escape that way, but there's also like a part you can get back there, and you can come back here and you can kind of get the machine going. So that's a neat sort of option that is present in the game. So generally, I think this is alright. It's not great. I felt they could have done a better job with bringing this one back. It's nice that they did. I always appreciate when the time is spent to, you know, bring back classic games, enhance them, make them a little bit better than they used to be. I do appreciate that, and I think some fans are going to really like the fact that they can experience this again. I don't believe that this is going to really hit it off with new players as much, just due to the difficulty and the style of the game. Oh, went the wrong way on this one. And not necessarily sure that this is going to kick off more reboots, because I understand there are sort of sequels in this one too. So we could go this way, or we go to the right finish level, but this way you can get, you know, the harvester part, and then you can go back and get the harvester going, assuming you survive. It just, like, it's sort of hardcore, and I'm having it a little bit easier of a time with this just due to the fact that I have played this level and the previous level, you know, multiple times to get to the point where I'm kind of moving through it. And that's where the mastering aspect comes into play, where I'm like, you could really, honestly, master this type of game in regards to understanding and remembering the levels just based off of playing it so many times as you're kind of getting frustrated. I know I was like, kind of getting a little bit angry. Not this time, but when I had previously played it, just in regards to, you know, working through the levels, trying to figure things out. And it does get quite a bit more puzzle-based as things go on. You know, this is more of a straightforward level. It's kind of where the puzzles are almost just beginning as you're going through here. Now, I actually didn't do this the last time. I didn't get the carbine thing going. I think I died getting the part one time, which frustrated me. And then I accidentally just like went right through the level, as opposed to sitting here and actually completing this. Where is that? That's a skull key. That's a harvester. Let me get that going. Oh, that's very interesting. And then that opens up the chalice that you can sort of earn. What is going on here? yeah, special chalice thingy. Usually revolving kills and stuff. So it's kind of like an extra special thing. I want the chalice, but I think I've got to kill people. And you gotta get to the slash, and you can see the chalice is kind of getting filled up by me killing them. That's in the top right corner, and then I'd be able to do that. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the game and kind of understand, you know, what it's about. Oh, that's not good. That thing just kills. And, you know, you get a good understanding of what MediEvil presents, and hopefully you can decide whether or not this is something that is enticing for you or interesting for you to grab. But yeah, that is the game, essentially. Damn pros.